Welcome to People in Profit, your essential business briefing. I'm Kate Moody. Coming up, the US and China prepare for another round of trade talks, but will they lead to a breakthrough? We speak to an expert about what's to come and what's at stake. IPO fever hits stock markets across the globe, but is it really worth going public? And we meet the South Koreans who are abandoning traditional careers to live their best lives as YouTube stars. It's been nearly 5 months since the world's two largest economies declared a truce in their tit-for-tat trade war. Top officials from the US and China are now preparing yet another round of negotiations in their attempt to reach a more permanent breakthrough. Otherwise, they've threatened new and higher tariffs on billions of dollars worth of each other's goods. There have been few details about what's been agreed so far. Sticking points include protection of intellectual property, technology transfers, and American demands for structural changes to China's economy. But both sides have suggested that they may be approaching a turning point.
The trade negotiations between China and the United States have already achieved tangible results. Both sides are talking, and we believe their delegations can work together to reach a mutually beneficial agreement.
Well, for more, we're joined from Brussels by Guntram Wolff, director of the economic think tank Bruegel. From your point of view, does a comprehensive deal seem feasible at this point, or are we heading for an escalation of tensions between the US and China?
The stakes are very high, and it's actually very difficult for both to agree on it. So, frankly speaking, I think it's totally open whether or not we will come to an agreement.
Now, much of the progress that's been reported seems to center around China buying more goods from the U.S., but we know a lot less about what negotiators are saying about the trickier issues of technology transfers and protection. Do you think they're making progress on that front?
The U.S. as well as the Europeans accuse China of not respecting WTO rules and using its market size to leverage firms and force firms into transferring technology. And I think this is really a practice that has to end. And officially, the Chinese side actually recognized this. For example, in the EU-China agreement at the summit a few weeks ago, which is a non-binding legal document, they actually both talk about this, and there is a joint agreement that this issue has to be tackled. But it's, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as the saying goes. So at the end of the day, the real question is, can you enforce such a thing on China?
Negotiators are trying to come up with some sort of enforcement mechanism that would ensure that both sides play by the new rules, whatever they are. What would that look like?
Well, I think currently what the US and China are discussing is some sort of a tribunal that meets, a bilateral tribunal that would meet twice a year, where such cases would basically be brought to the two chief negotiators. Whether that in the end is enough, and what would happen if they don't agree, I think that is really the key question. Would it allow would it be permissible in such a bilateral agreement that one side would say, well, I don't feel that you have complied with the spirit of our agreement, and therefore I'm reimposing tariffs? Would that be possible? And would that be possible without triggering counter tariffs? So at the end of the day, what we are trying to do, what the negotiators are trying to do here, is finding some sort of a legally binding dispute settlement mechanism that is actually being rejected at the moment from the US at the WTO level, at the World Trade Organization level, because the US feels that the WTO trade dispute settlement is not working well.
Well, so much attention has really been focused on the world's two largest economies, but Europe has been impacted by this dispute as well. It's been affected by the trade war, and it itself has been the target of U.S. tariffs. How is the EU faring in this increasingly volatile trade environment?
I think the EU really is very much affected by this global trade environment. I mean, we are an extremely open economy. We export a lot per capita. The European economy will be in trouble, and the European way of doing global business is in trouble. And so a lot of thinking here in Brussels and across capitals in Europe is currently exactly on this issue. It's exactly asking the question, how can we sustain global trade if the multilateral trading system does not function well anymore? And so this is really the core question. In my view, the current strategy is the right one. It's a strategy of closing bilateral trading deals. The biggest one has been recently the EU-Japan trade deal, covering 1/3 of global GDP. So that's a very significant trade deal. And a number of other trade deals are in the making. But frankly speaking, we need to speed up our contingency planning for what happens if the global multilateral trading system becomes dysfunctional because of US aggression and because of Chinese non-compliance with some of the spirit of the rules of the WTO.
Well, that brings me to my question about the WTO. These tensions have put a spotlight on the role that the World Trade Organization and other international institutions are playing. How is the WTO responding to this?
Well, the key question is whether the WTO will be able to adapt and will be able to adapt and strike new deals on the key issues of tomorrow. So progress in the trade negotiations at the WTO has been extremely small in the last 20 years, basically. And one can rightly say that the WTO at the end of the day is just really functioning in its dispute settlement. And the dispute settlement is exactly what is being questioned now by the United States. And the United States might not appoint a dispute judge, which means that the dispute settlement mechanism, the appellate body, becomes unoperational, becomes dysfunctional. And so the risk for the WTO is actually very, very big. I think one has to move forward with plurilateral agreements, so a smaller set of countries agreeing on some key issues, such as, for example, digital trade, and then opening up those deals to everybody else in the WTO. That's the only way I can see forward for salvaging the negotiating arm of the WTO.
Guntram Wolff of Bruegel, thanks so much for joining us on People in Profit. Next, is 2019 really the year of the unicorns? Dozens of fast-growing startups are planning to begin trading on major stock exchanges, names that have become part of our daily lives, like Uber, Airbnb, Postmates, and Slack. Market volatility in late 2018 gave many cold feet, and the U.S. government shutdown in January meant a delay in the filing of official paperwork. Still, the list of IPO filings is growing, and investors are preparing to jump into the fray. Well, Brian Quinn's been taking a look at why so many tech startups are rushing to go public. Brian?
Well, Kate, a unicorn, of course, is shorthand for a privately held tech company valued at over $1 billion. Ride-hailing firm Lyft is one of them. It launched its shares on the NASDAQ in late March. Its larger rival, Uber, has registered for an early May IPO. Internet scrapbook Pinterest launched its shares on April 18th. Airbnb and business messaging service Slack are soon to follow. Why go public? Well, it's the quickest way to raise cash. Lyft raised $2.3 billion, Pinterest $1.4 billion, and Uber expects to raise around $10 billion. A successful IPO can also overshadow negative publicity, key for Uber after a string of recent scandals. But none of those three companies is profitable. Despite revenues of nearly $12 billion, Uber lost $1.8 billion in 2018. Lyft posted a loss of $900 million, Pinterest $60 million in the red last year. So why aren't investors scared off? For one, the situation is far from rare. Unprofitable companies now account for over 80% of new IPOs. Facebook was unprofitable at its market debut. Amazon spent years as a public company before turning a profit. For Lyft and Uber, many are betting on market domination in a future where private cars driven by their owners are no longer the norm. But cautionary tales abound. Shares in tech darling Snap Inc. are down roughly 2/3 since their market debut 2 years ago. And while Pinterest shares gained over 25% in their first day of trading, Lyft shares lost a similar proportion in their early weeks, leading many to wonder if the current IPO boom could become a repeat of the dot-com bust.
Brian, lots to look out for. Thank you so much. Well, South Korea is known for its tough working culture, grueling competition to get into top companies, followed by long working hours and limited holidays once you're in. The pressure has led some young Koreans to turn away from traditional workplaces and look for alternative career paths. YouTube is playing a pivotal role for videographers and trendsetters, hoping for a fresh start. Yenna Lee has more.
He had what most people dream of, a stable job and a generous salary at one of the world's top multinational companies. But despite it all, this former researcher at Samsung quit everything to become a lifestyle YouTuber.
Hello everyone, continuing from the first episode, today I'm going to talk about why I quit Samsung.
A radical choice in a country where Samsung Electronics is still the #1 desired workplace for job seekers, according to a recent poll.
My mum's friends' reactions were like, why? They asked if I had gone crazy. They had a hard time understanding why I would quit such a stable job that most others are dying to get.
Yoon isn't alone. He's following in the footsteps of others, such as Tae Do-seok. The 40-year-old YouTuber quit his job at a major South Korean conglomerate. He now earns more than $15 million a year and is a celebrity in his own right, inviting actors and K-pop stars to feature in his videos. He's financed by sponsors, ads, and direct contributions from fans.
A job that lets you make money with your hobby and feel a sense of achievement while doing what you love, it's definitely attractive.
The relatively new vocation has paved the way for new businesses too. Hopeful YouTubers can even take classes to learn how to create original video content and live their dream.
I'm not obsessed with making loads of money. I just need enough to live on. The point is, I just want to do what I want to do.
Not everyone will end up as successful as Tae Do-seok, and not everyone is willing to take the plunge. But traditional workplaces are no longer as attractive as they once were. Employees are rejecting a culture of overworking, and those who are yet to enter the workforce too are already dreaming of different careers. YouTuber is now among the top 5 job titles desired by primary school students in South Korea, alongside athlete, teacher, or doctor.
Well, that's all for now, but you can find the best of our coverage on our Facebook page at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at Kate A. Moody. Until next time, thanks for watching.